Okay, so here's part two. The majority of Americans want a third party. No, we need a third party. It's obvious. The math and logic shows that as soon as we do that, the GOP shrinks, loses power, and we can finally go forward. It's like we're trying to move society forward with the parking brake on. And we can't do that. But I'm also aware the Democratic Party, which is so full of propaganda and scare tactics, just like the GOP, just different. They've attached a virus, a mind virus, into the imagination of progressives that says, you must never vote third party. You must never vote third party. Ralph Nader, Hillary Clinton. Okay, so like most things, there's truth and there's untruth. So here's the truth. In 90% of the states of America, their presidential elections are not even close. First, you have to remember this isn't a national popular public polling election situation. It's a state-by-state situation, right? Hopefully folks remember that or know that. So in 90% of the states, it's not even close. Never has been, never will be. So for example, and they're referred to as safe states. So for example, we've got California, which is a blue state. And sorry about that. It's voted blue for decades and decades, and the margin just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and it's not even close. It's like a 2-to-1 margin. In politics, a race is only considered close if it's within 5 points, 5 to 10 points. Anything above a 10-point spread, not close, landslide. So in California, it's 2-to-1. It's like 65-35. It's not even close. It's never been close. In places like Montana, for example, think of all the deep red states, Montana, Idaho, North Dakota, South Dakota. Never close, never close. Blue votes never have a chance of winning in those states. Just look at the numbers. It's never close and never will be. Those are the people that are free to vote third party. If you live in a safe state, by definition, that word means you are safe to vote third party and you won't affect the outcome. So every blue voter in a demonstrably safe red state that never has any chance of winning, those are wasted votes. They have no chance of affecting the outcome by voting third party. You understand? There are only 7 states where blue voters have a chance of affecting the outcome by voting third party. That's the message. If you live in a competitive battleground swing state where there isn't a clear trend, where it's not always the same, it's not a huge gap, and the gap is getting bigger. Most of America is like that. The states are pre-decided. But in 7 states, it's absolutely true. Don't you ever vote third party. That's what happened to Nader. That's what happened to Clinton. Is this message too difficult for modern American progressive adult minds? No. Just pay attention every 4 years. Which state are you in? And guess what? It's the same 7 for the most part. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Georgia, Nevada. Used to be Florida, not anymore. Used to be Ohio, not anymore. So anyway, it's true. You should never vote third party, but that's only in 10% of the states. Are you listening? 10%, 90% of the states are safe states. It's not close, never been close. You could vote third party in California. You have no chance of affecting the outcome. Half of Biden's voters could have voted for Mickey Mouse. Nothing would have changed. All right, but you're asking me, Martin, we'll never get a third party for president. And this is the good news. We're not trying to get a third party for president, are we? No, we're not. We're trying to get a third party in Congress. So the GOP begins to be a permanent minority. And then 2 progressive parties, one moderate, one progressive, can move things forward because they will always outvote. And the GOP won't be in a position of power. And hopefully eventually those 2 parties will recognize we need to fix the system so it doesn't give them this minority rule that we're experiencing right now, where the Senate doesn't represent the majority of Americans, the president doesn't represent The majority of the Americans, the House doesn't, and they're gerrymandering their way. So the good news is this. Remember two numbers, 5%, 15%. 5%, 15%. That's all we need. We're not trying to get someone president. We're trying to get someone on stage in the debates so that people have an alternative and then vote for them in Congress. This has already happened. This happened with John Anderson in 1980. It happened with Ross Perot in 1992. Every time someone got on stage, people were like, we are so hungry for something else. And you know what happened? Here's the 5%, 15% thing. There used to be a nonpartisan group that was in charge of the televised national presidential debates every year. And they had set a threshold of 5%. 5% of what, you ask? 5% of just national polling ahead of the election. Not votes, not actual election results, just polling. If someone got 5% of the reputable major polls, they got on stage. So John Anderson got on, Ross Perot got on twice. Well, the Democrats aren't interested in actual progressive change. They want a stranglehold on the future. They're backed by business. Business wants change to happen, but it's such a slow incremental pace that they can keep control of it and keep everyone dependent and making money off of it. You got that? That's what they're in charge of. Business is like, okay, we know we need to change, but give us a second. This is a big Titanic, and we still want to be in charge of all of your money and needs. And so they're in charge of the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is in charge of making change as slow and incremental as possible. The GOP is trying to face backwards. So you've got this Democrat Party that suddenly sees that a third party might show up. And then the Democratic Party suddenly isn't the good cop to the bad cop. And they can't have that happen because they're not interested in a great future for everybody. They're interested in hoarding and monopolizing all of the visions forward so that business can control it and keep it at the slowest pace. So they got together with the GOP after Ross Perot, and they were like, we can't. That was close. He got a lot of votes, you guys. So what did they do? Anybody that is conspiring for the best outcome for themselves, like two mafia dons, they got together with the GOP and they said, we're going to hijack this debate, and we're going to raise that threshold to 15%. No one will ever get on stage again. It's no longer a nonpartisan affair. It is a partisan affair, and it's only ever going to be the two of us in the imaginations of America so that we can restrict the future and the state and scale of progress. And the GOP was like, sounds good, bro. The two of us, best buddies. So they raised it to 15%. They've owned it ever since. Impossible to get to. But here's the good news. It's just public polling. So as long as leading up to an election, everyone just talks about the third party and talks about them and talks about them, at least 15% of people talk about them, you can still vote for blue in the election all you want safely and not change the outcome. But before the election, say third party, anytime you get contacted by a pollster, they will get on stage and things will start to change. Actually, what will change is the two parties will raise the threshold or do something, anyway. But here's the other cool thing, 5%. So once we get them on stage with just talking about them before an election, see how safe that is? Just talk about them, not vote. Just talk about third parties in the polling leading up to the election. We get them on stage. And in the states where we are definitely losing, the blue states will never, never, never win. Montana, Idaho, North Dakota, all those ones. It's a managed retreat. It's a surrender. You got the state. And what I did is I did the math. And if everyone that was wasting their votes on blue in a state that would never win voted third party, we hit the 5% threshold that's required for a third party to get federal funding, and they get a boost without affecting the outcome of the election. So if you're a blue voter in a safe state, you actually are safe to vote third party without affecting the income because it's so lopsided one way or another. And guess what? That's 90% of the states. Guess what? 90% of the states, 90% of states in America are safe states. meaning it's a huge gap. It's never close. It's never been close. And the gap is only getting bigger. So you're totally safe to vote third party in a safe state, especially in a losing red state, okay? The losing red state, that's where we need to throw up the white flag in a managed retreat, have all of those people vote third party. We hit the 5%. They get federal funding. We talk about them all in the polling. They get the 15% on stage. We get that third party we need and deserve. We crack open this logjam. Republicans suddenly are only a third of the power, facing backwards. We have a moderate going forwards. We've got a left wing going forwards. They work together. They always outvote the other one, and they agree the system needs changing, and the GOP never gets this false leverage from this old system. So anyway, that's it. We're protesting the wrong people and wrong things. It's pissing our neighbors off and making civil life untenable. We should be out there protesting the Democratic Party. And then when the other people drive past, they won't feel like they're angry at us and they need to flip us off. They can see that, like, yeah, your party does fucking suck, doesn't it? That's why we'll never vote for it. We wish we had an option too. If you guys would split into a moderate and a progressive, we'd vote for the moderate and we'd abandon the GOP left and right. They're abandoning them anyway. So that's what it is. Go out and protest the Democratic Party. Stop funding ICE. Fund ICE, lose votes. Grow a spine. And every time you have a chance to vote, vote third party if you're in a safe state. Find out if you're in a safe state or not. And guess what? There's only 7 of them. And guess what? It's pretty much always the same. And in those 7 states, don't vote third party. But okay, here's the other secret. This is the cheat code I discovered. So in California, we have 5 million extra bonus votes that are wasted. Blue. In New York, there's millions of wasted blue votes. In Illinois with Chicago, there's millions of wasted blue votes. If we just had 200,000 people move from New York, Chicago, and California and move to Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, this is done. The blue wins the Electoral College every time. We just need to move the chess pieces. And because we have overvotes to the tune of tens of millions, we only need to move a fraction of progressive voters into those 3 states, and we're done. I call it Move the Blue. I was going to write a book. I even looked at the URL. I was going to buy the URL. I'm just really freaking busy, so I decided to just talk to you while I'm on my sunset walk. So, can we get 200 to 300, 400,000 progressives to move from these ultra-safe states into those 3, and then we got it cinched? Never have the GOP in office for president again? Can we get people to talk about third parties as much as possible in the polling up to election so that they get the 15% that the 2 mafia cartels have set as a high bar? That's easy to do, right? Just talk about them. And then can we vote for third parties in the safe states where it's safe to do so they get the 5% and they get that funding? I think these are all easy asks. And I think if the tens of millions of people that can't make the move and wouldn't want to make the move chipped in $50, $100 each, we'd have a fund that would subsidize moving the blue and making this a done deal. But here's the thing. Here's the problem about all this. What we're talking about is a single party rule. And this is what I want to caution against. Both parties have put such a stranglehold on our imaginations that each side wants the other side to never be in office. We're now talking about one party rule in America. We have the fewest choices possible. Any fewer choices, we don't get choices. We have the fewest choices possible. It's ridiculous. So we don't want a Democratic president in office all the time, but we do want to keep the backwards-facing GOP out of office. So we move the blue. That could happen before the next election. 200 to 400,000 people from California, New York, Chicago, move to Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. We can do that. GOP doesn't win the presidency. But that's not where we stop. We talk about third parties in the polling, and we vote for them in the safe states, which is, again, 90% of the states. Don't believe the Democratic propaganda. So, there you have it. Are we willing to pony up each a little bit of money to entice a few 100,000 of us to safely go to these 3 states and block out the backwards-facing people from ever having the presidency again? Seems like an easy peasy move, right? Who wants to start a GoFundMe? And then, can we talk about third parties in the polling? Of course we can, and we should. And can we safely vote third parties at the election enough to get to 5%? Absolutely. With just a managed retreat in the losing states that never have a chance, and then some of us in the overwhelmingly blue states also pitching in. Get out and protest the Democrats, move the blue, talk about third parties, vote third parties when safe, and don't ever vote third party if you're not in a safe state.